Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Play the Tape. I'm your host, Derek J. Fields. Listen, it's a blessing and an honor to be here. Disclaimer, because I got it right here on my computer, my notes, because sometimes I forget. You know how I am. If you've been listening for a while, full disclaimer, we are not licensed or certified drug and alcohol counselors. We are not licensed clinical social workers. We are not licensed therapists, but what we are is we are certified peer support, but that is a little bit different than being a licensed and certified counselor. But we will have them on the show to bring a different perspective, a different experience, strength, and hope, and a different view, excuse me, on how mental health, addiction, and suicide prevention looks at a professional level. But for Play the Tape, we are a platform of community support, advocacy, and education when it comes to those who have mental health and addiction concerns and issues, and also suicide prevention, educating our community on the importance of how mental health, addiction, and suicide affect us and impact us as a community. My guest today is a brother I met at our peer support training. Good brother, man of God. His story is very inspirational from how he started, from the processes, from the trials and tribulations, from the ups and downs, from the peaks and valleys, to experience, to strength, to hope, and to joy that he has in his story, and his triumph and his victory to get him where he is right now. This is my brother Quenton Credle. Did I say that right? I see. That's why I asked you in the beginning.
Yeah. Cradle.
Cradle. See what I'm saying? See? Yeah. Quenton Credle, my brother. Yes, sir. And we're always about laughter because laughter is good for the spirit. But my brother Quenton, listen, I thank you again for being up here and sacrificing and taking some of your time out of your day with what you got going on and coming up here sharing your experience, strength, and hope to the viewers, to the listeners, to let them know that recovery and wellness is possible no matter what your background, no matter what your history, no matter what your circumstances. So Quenton, my brother, I thank you for being here, and I'm very grateful that you're here.
Thank you for having me on, man. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely. So listen, we'll take about an hour, about 50, 55 minutes. We're going to get to your story. I just want you, wherever you want to start, the floor is yours, my brother. However you want to start, wherever you want to start, the floor is yours. Absolutely.
All right. I guess I want to start like in the beginning, like how I grew up. I grew up in a pretty good location. I grew up with a hardworking mother. My father, he was in the military, so he was absent a lot on duty. So my mother was really who I saw raise me up, and she tried her best to teach me how to be a successful man. I grew up in a high school. In the school I went to, I was in the top of my class. I was an honor roll student. I was involved with things such as Boy Scouts, 4-H camp. I grew up in a pretty prominent setting. However, influence is a major thing growing up at a young tender age like that. And influence for me was more so music and the environment who I was around, and people that I befriended that didn't have as much as me and were doing different things to get by. So when I got in high school, that age, you just kind of experimenting and, testing out things. And I started smoking marijuana at that point. And I began to, my mother struggled, we had what we needed, but we didn't have it all, you know. And I was
Right.
enticed by what the music and things I was seeing. I always wanted more, and I wanted to help her get that. So
Did you have any siblings? Were there any brothers and sisters?
yes, sir. I had two brothers that were younger than me that were also in the household as well. And they were in a similar situation. All three of our fathers were in the military. So duty, of course, separated them. And my
Yeah.
mom was the solo parent, which I'm sure you can relate to the military aspect.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I always wanted to have more and be more and do more, even though I was at the age where, you know, school should have been my focus. But I began to hang around people and get in this crowd that were in criminal activities such as selling drugs and gangs. And I felt like that void that I was looking for from my father, even though he wasn't absent for the wrong reasons, I was beginning to feel that void with these older guys that I was hanging around with. Um, so that led me into getting involved with the selling of the drugs and getting involved with the gang. And for me, it gave me a sense of I'm trying to think of the best way to word this. It gave me a sense of importance or status along
Mm,
with.
right.
So, you know, I got this feeling it was like a high in a sense. And I got deeply involved with that. And it led me to falling away from the things that were most important, such as my academics, my studies, my family. It began to consume me to a point. And you know, I got deeper and deeper. By the time I was in 10th grade, I was full on selling drugs and full on involved in gang activity. And I wasn't really using drugs at the point.
Mm-hmm.
I was consuming marijuana, but I hadn't graduated to anything harsher than that at that point. So by the time I graduated high school, I really didn't have a sense of where I wanted to go in life. You know, by the time most people graduate high school, they decided about the military or college, or some
Right.
people have a job by that point. For me, I had gotten so deep into making my own money and being what I assumed was self sufficient, what I assumed, that I pretty much just put all that stuff on the back burner and went full fledged on into the streets. By the time I was 18, 19 years old, I was in a lifestyle where it was only a matter of time before I would be led to incarceration. I knew that. That was always a thought in the back of my mind. But also, by the time that I had graduated, you know, let's look at music.
Mm-hmm.
Music back in the day, like, let's give an example like KRS-One, uh, KRS-One, Public Enemy. These guys they were rappers, but they also had a message that they were trying to give to us.
Right.
By the time I graduated high school, music had completely changed into something else.
Mm-hmm.
It was the glorifying of the drug selling, the womanizing, and things like that. I'm not trying to tear that down, but I'm saying that's not a good influence. That's what in my opinion.
Right.
And for me, that's what I glorified. So in 2008, that's when I graduated high school. You know, that was the norm. And I just, even though I knew I was on the right path, I was seeing what I visualized as success from it.
Was there anyone that could intervene that you would have listened to at that time that would have been like, hey, Quentin, you're headed to either death or the penitentiary. Like it's one of those two options. Was there anyone that did intervene or could have intervened that you would have listened to?
There was people that did intervene. Plenty of people actually. Some people that I had grew up with that were mentoring me at the Boys and Girls Club. Some people from my grandmother's church. They did, but they couldn't because my mind was full fledged on into that direction. I would hear you with
Mm-hmm.
these, but I wasn't listening to you. See, there's a difference between
Mm,
you can use these all day. They're there, they're gonna catch it. But there was nothing that they could do to stop me. And the more that people tried to intervene, that led me to the more I pushed people away
Right.
because I didn't want to hear the intervening, even though there were people that tried. To me, you were naive and you had no idea of my what I was visualizing as success. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so on the flip side of that same coin, I had plenty of people that were there on the negative aspect that were praising me or giving me this satisfaction that I was going in the right direction.
Mm.
Well, let me fast forward. So I ended up catching a bunch of charges. I ended up getting caught in my drug dealing aspect and things I had going on, which led to me being incarcerated several times. What I took from that, and this is something that I wish a lot of our younger guys coming up, this is a message that I really try to give to them. When all those people and all that status that I had when I was out there, when all that was taken away from me and I was incarcerated, none of those people were there. You know
Wow.
who was there? The same people that were trying to intervene before I got there. That same support system and those same people were there, even though I had pushed them away, even though I had ignored them, even though I gave them no time of day. They were still there to support me while I was incarcerated.
That
Now,
gave me goosebumps, bro. Like that gave me, and I mean that in like joy. And
right,
I'm so thankful that you said that.
right,
Because that's a very, very important lesson for the youth that is involved in that type of activity to
right,
understand that, listen, the people that is going to give you admiration, praise you, and lift you up, be it at a party with you, spend that money, do all these different types of activities out in the street, they
mm-hmm.
ain't gonna be with you when you get locked up or when you really,
Absolutely,
really need them. But the
right,
people that love you before all of that and trying to encourage you to go a different direction, those are the ones that's going to support you in your
right,
time of need and give you that support. Man, that's an important, that's such a profound message. And
right,
and and I hope that's something that you can inspire to teach the youth because they need
right,
to hear that. They need to
right.
hear that. Yeah.
Exactly, absolutely. If those people cared that what I in the beginning of my incarceration, I did a lot of digging into my mind because I had lost so many friends to overdose, gun violence. Several of my friends got long sentences that they were that there's some of them are still incarcerated to this day, and that's been in 2010, 2013, 10, 11 years ago. But what I really took from it was those people that are trying to intervene, they don't have to take any time out of their day, anything away from their life to stop and say a caring word or say, hey, man, you need to stop. The people that are with you on a daily basis while you're out there doing what you're doing, they're enjoying the women that you're bringing, they're enjoying the parties that you're throwing. If they were your true friends, they would stop at least once. Think about all the times y'all hang together. I was with my people every day. They would
Hmm.
stop at least once and say, hey, man, you need to do something different if they really cared.
Right.
But they don't. They enable and they influence to continue, not for you, but usually 9 times out of 10 for self, what they're getting off of
Yes.
you. They care
Yes.
nothing about you. And when you
Leeching.
go, exactly,
Leeching. Yes.
exactly. When you go away, see, now there's nothing you can do for them. Now you need them to do something for you, be a support system for you, and they'll be gone just like that. That was a hard truth for me, a hard pill for me to swallow because I was embarrassed to go back to those people, to have to call from the jail phone to those people and say, hey, listen, I know that I should have listened to you, but I didn't. And I'm in a situation now where I need you. And there were several people that tried to intervene back then that weren't receptive
Mm,
now of me because of the bridge. I had burned that bridge
right.
because
And
of
that's a
it. Mm-hmm.
That's a very important lesson. When I go speak, I share about that. I because it happened to me. I in my active addiction years, I burned a lot of bridges and hurt a lot of people. And
Right.
some of those relationships are gone. Some of
Mm-hmm.
those relationships have been mended, but some of
Mm-hmm.
those relationships are at a distance where they are holding me here.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Right.
they got me at 6 feet. Like,
Right.
I love you, I've forgiven you, you're over there. And
Right.
I
Right.
share about that because that's very important. They tell us that in therapy and treatment, they tell us about how we have to change people, places, and things. They
Mhm.
never really talk about the flip side of that coin, where
Right.
we might be that person, place, or thing that someone else has to change
Exactly.
because of how they were impacted in our addiction or our mental health
Exactly.
circumstances.
Exactly.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
Right. Exactly. And when you get to that point, when it gets to that point where you've burned a bridge, you have to be able to learn to accept that within yourself, that that person is setting a healthy boundary for them. You
Mm-hmm.
have to understand you can't it's hard. Now I'm going to say that it is hard.
Yes, it is
I'm sure
hard
you
and it
can
might
relate.
hurt.
Right.
And it might hurt.
Yeah, it's not simple by any means,
Yeah, right.
but you have to really, a part of this what we're going to get to eventually in this conversation is the recovery and the release of it. A part of
Hmm.
that is being able to really sit down and evaluate and do a self-assessment, an inventory on yourself, because you have to be held accountable and take responsibility for things that you may have said or done.
Hmm.
Okay? And
Yes.
that's one of the hardest, out of the leaving the streets behind, quitting the drugs, which we'll get to that in here in a little bit. But
Right.
my point of saying all this is one of the hardest things to do in this whole process is to truly, I'm saying this from my experience, is to truly take accountability and hold yourself accountable. Hold yourself accountable for the things that happened and occurred in the past, because you'll never be free from those chains if you still allow them to bond you.
I
You see what I'm
appreciate that.
saying? Yes,
Yeah, I
sir.
appreciate that. When
That's
you
major.
That is, and I appreciate that. When you were on the phone to those people when you was incarcerated, and when
Hmm.
you got incarcerated and you was trying to call those people and those bridges were burned,
Hmm.
how did that mentally affect your strength? How did that affect you mentally? How
Hmm.
was your mental stability in that? Now you're incarcerated.
Hmm.
You've been in the game, making money, being the man,
Hmm.
having these materialistic things, the success or what the society programs us to think success should look like
Right.
in a man.
Right. Hmm.
Now you're incarcerated. Now you're calling people. There are some people pick up the phone, but there's others that are not because of the bridges that were burned.
Hmm.
How now mentally, how do you stay sharp? How do you strengthen that? How do you stay focused?
Hmm. Well, I'm glad you asked that, because just to elaborate on that, when I say that I was successful at it, I was highly successful. A lot of people know me successful. A lot of
Hmm.
people knew me, and I thought I had a lot of resources and help. But
Right.
to answer your question, I'm glad you said that, because that's about to lead me into the next step of my story. That's perfect. So what I know now is different than what I knew then. So when those things happened to me, it led me to it kind of broke me mentally. It affected me negatively because I wasn't seeing or understanding the positive in it. I felt like all these people that I thought were my friends and things, they've obviously abandoned me clearly.
Hmm.
And now I had this large circle of people that were there from the beginning, and now I got a few that are still there, but some are not answering the phone and some never want to speak to me again. And it broke me. Not to mention the environment that I was in and where I was during my incarceration. I couldn't just go in my room and curl up in my comfort zone. I have to focus on what's going on around me. And
Hmm.
mentally, mentally it led me into, okay, now these people are giving up on me too after I've been abandoned by the people that I thought were my friends. So now I'm in this aspect, I'm pretty much going to adapt to my environment. And that's what I did. My incarceration in the beginning, I was on this path of enlightenment and I was trying to change and I wanted people to see that change in me, but I wanted it to all happen like this.
Right.
But people
Right.
people weren't just buying into that. Okay, you've been incarcerated for 6, 7, 8 months now, and now you're saying that you're on this new path. People want to see evidence and proof. People want to
Mm-hmm.
see you act and walk what you're talking. So instead, what I did was I got back involved with the gang. And I, throughout my incarceration, I spent a lot of time in isolation and solitary confinement because I was identified as someone with ties to a gang. Mentally, let's talk about mental health here.
Right.
So imagine if you get into a situation, we're humans, so if we get into a situation, sometimes we may want to isolate ourselves. Let me give an example. If your wife's getting on your nerve, we got wives, we know how it goes.
Yeah, we got yes.
You know, everyone has that comfort space, whether it be your man cave, as they call it now, or maybe you just need to take a ride in your car. You need isolation. I'm not going to say isolation, but separation.
Okay.
Separation from the problem, walking away from a problem to and then revisiting, right?
Right.
Okay, when you're isolated though, that's all it is. So isolation is used in this system in the incarceration. Let's say you're identified as a person tied to a gang or known for having bad behavior or mental illness. They isolate you to keep you away from other people because they don't want to deal with any kind of confrontation. But mentally, when you're isolated, that leads to anxiety, which I was diagnosed with,
Mm-hmm.
depression, which I was diagnosed with, because it literally put me in a place where I had no hope. I was at that point where all it was this 6x9 cell. That's it. All day long, 23 hours a day. That's all I did for 74 days. And that time is not rehabilitation.
No.
That time is actually counterproductive because I need social interaction. I
Yes.
need
You connection. You need
exactly.
relationship. Healthy. Health. Let me specify. Healthy relationship. Healthy
Exactly.
connection. Yes.
Right. I
Right.
need that I need that to heal. I need that to be a better version of myself. So in that isolation period, all I could think about was all that I've lost, everyone that I've lost, all these material things that I thought were so great. And now I'm literally in a concrete steel box in nothing but my underclothes. It's literally all been taken away from me. In those moments and those nights, it was some nights that I cried so much my eyes wouldn't even produce water anymore.
Mm.
A tear, I could take my hand and slam it in that door and a tear wouldn't even be able to come out because I had cried so much. I was mentally broken. So I get released. When I first got released, it was like having to readjust, to society and trying to get my things back in order. But now I got a criminal background.
Mm-hmm.
Now the people that cut me off or the people that I did reconnect with that were really they want to see the action in me. Now, all this talking I've been doing over the phone, they want to see it. But
Right.
they don't know what I endured in there. They don't understand that mentally, physically, I may look okay, but mentally, I'm not. One of the hardest things to do for a man, in my opinion, for me, was to admit that mentally, because we're this man, we carry this strong facade.
Right.
So we try to deal with a lot of things within. Mentally, I was not there. So this is the next step in my story where I get to how I went. There was no longer, I didn't have any urge to sell any drugs or I didn't want to be involved with the gang. I took a beating to get out of the gang, which was pretty harsh. And I had turned my back on the gang scenario. I just want to tell the youth and the young out there that the gangs and things like that, it's not a support system for you. It's all it is what can you do for the gang? What can you do? What can you do? What can you do? Until finally you're of no use to them and you'll be left high and dry. Trust me, that's from experience.
Mm-hmm.
It's not worth it for anyone contemplating it, young, trying, maybe involved in it. Think about your future. You
I
don't
pre-
learn. Hindsight is 2020.
yes, I
Remember that.
appreciate you sharing that again. I appreciate
Remember
you.
that.
I appreciate you. I appreciate all the experience, strength, and hope that you're sharing up to this point. But definitely when it comes to the youth, because that's the future.
Right.
That's the future, and you want to better them and place them in a better situation for success, set them up for success and not for failure. And I
Right.
appreciate that, because remember back in the day, if you remember back in the day, because we're around the same time frame, that
Right.
even if you saw a person in the
Mhm.
streets, and you saw one that was someone that was participating in that type of activity, they
Mhm.
would be like, youngster, this ain't what you
Mhm.
want. Go to school.
Exactly.
Why you skipping school? Go to school, get your education. This
Exactly.
ain't what you want. This is what I had to do, but don't. They didn't. Some people, there were certain rules and
Right.
certain integrity of go to school, young
Right.
man, young lady, go to school. This ain't
Right.
what you want. You don't want to be a
Right.
part of this. This is not the type of lifestyle. Go to school, get your education, get out of here. Go do
Right.
something better, and then educate yourself. Then you can help your community in another way by
Right.
coming back and with your education and changing things from the inside out. So
Exactly.
that
Exactly.
type of so that's why I said I appreciate you sharing that and
Yes, sir.
giving that to the youth, because
Sir.
that is not how that is. It has evolved so much to, like you said, the glorification
Right.
of selling and distributing and
Right.
manufacturing
Right.
drug. Yeah. So,
Right.
but
Right.
yeah.
So, okay. Let me say this to kind of elaborate on that for a second. Think about how it's easy. It's one choice if you want to get if it's one choice if you want to get in the game. Easy. You can get in the
Hmm.
game, you can make money, you can get cars, and you can get women and do all this stuff, right? But trust me, it's only a matter of time. There's no one that's retired from that. No one. No one's made it that far. It can all be taken from you just like this, right?
Right.
So one of the thought processes that I've instilled into myself today, hindsight being 2020, is when you go to school, it may take long. It may take long to get somewhere and get something that you want, high school diploma, associate, bachelor, etc. Or you go to you join your military, do the right thing in there, get what you can get from it. But what's weighted scale here? A short, quick decision that can make me all this money and get me all this status, but can be taken away from me, or something that I can really put in work for. It may take longer to get there, but no one can take that from me.
And it's
If
more
I
meaningful. And it's more
exactly
meaningful because it's more meaningful too. I'm sorry, I
right,
didn't mean to cut
yo,
you
yo,
off.
no, no, that's right,
I just wanted to that was just on my spirit, that because I agree. It's just more meaningful, you
right,
know? Yeah.
right. It has substance. It has
Yes.
substance. You can take that degree plaque and you can go show it. You can take that honorable discharge or whatever it may be and show it. Hey, this is what I did, and this is how I got this, or whatever it may be. You can't go and show your gang tattoos or whatever you bought with your because you have to hide it. You see, you can't glorify that or you can't show it. That's what it's about. That's what self-satisfaction is, showing the fruits of your labor, right? That goes all the
Hmm.
way back to the Bible talks about the fruits of your labor, correct?
Right. Yes.
But in order to show the fruits of your labor, you have to you have to go about it the correct way is how I feel, because you
Hmm.
can't go around broadcasting all this stuff and you ain't got no kind of proof where it come from. You can't tell nobody how you got it. See, looking over your shoulder, that's not how life's supposed to be. That's stress. Anyway, the point of the story is you put in if you work hard for something, in the end, the value of it is upscaled. It's worth it in the
Yes, it
end.
is.
That's
Yes, it
true.
is.
That's true self-gratification. Knowing how you got to this point. Nothing comes easy. If something comes easy, trust me, it is not worth it. And that
Hmm.
goes for anything, whether it be materialistic things, whether it be a partner, a male or a female that you're seeking a relationship with. Nothing that comes easy is worth it because
Right.
it's about hard work. Anyway, moving forward. So now I'm out and I don't have any connection to the gang. I don't have any connection to any of my old resources or that life that I was living. No one really wants to take me in. My mom, she took me in, but it was stressful because she was always on my back about doing what she's supposed to do as a parent. She was
Right.
always on my back trying to keep me straight. This is when I can remember it. This is when I had tried drugs a few times, selling it and stuff like that, partying and whatnot. But this is when I really began my addiction at this point. I felt like I got a criminal record. I've been incarcerated. Everyone knows about my situation, about what I was doing before. No one's going to trust me. No jobs are going to give me an opportunity. I tried the drug the first time to just take my mind away from it for a little bit.
Hmm.
That's where it started. I just wanted to just temporarily for that day. My plan was the next day I was gonna get up and be what's it called?
Productive.
Uh, yeah, productive citizen the next day.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let me tell you, that was absolute crap that I was selling myself. When I tried it, well, when I did it that day, it numbed all the feeling that of that guilt and of that pain. So now instead of going to seek help that I needed to deal with it, now I'm going to self-medicate. That's how I felt.
Right.
It went from my usage exploded. It went from that one time to all day long. I took off like a rocket. Most of the times it happens gradually, you
Yeah.
know. But for me, I did not want to face. I did not want to face the things that I needed to correct in myself. Truly, I did not want to face it. So I took off like a rocket. It's crazy how you can think to yourself. I had children, their mother, me, and that we were involved. She's my wife now. We were involved. But it's crazy to think that I'll say, I'll never put anything before my family. I'll never put anything before my children. It's crazy to think that I would say that because when that drug took a hold of me, nothing else mattered.
Nothing
Because
matter. Nothing
nothing,
else matter. Nothing. Nothing. I'm
nothing.
with you. Nothing. Nothing.
And I still think back sometimes, to those things like the things that I sacrificed for it because it was giving me this false feeling. I'm thinking my thought process was because of the way that I feel, because of the substance. I'm thinking everything around me's fine because I think I feel fine.
Right.
But really
Right.
and truly, it was a snowball effect. Every time that I took myself out of the reality by the substance use, the reality was doing nothing but crumbling more and more. And I could not realize that because of it all boiled down to me being afraid to face the things that I needed to correct my own character flaws.
Mm.
The bridges that were burnt, the people, those things will heal themselves if you do right over time. But the true construction, what truly needs to go under construction is here. It's here.
Right.
Because once that substance gets in you, I'll speak from my own personal experience. Once that substance got into me, I was no longer myself.
Right.
I was the
Right.
furthest from myself that I had ever been. Suicide, contemplated it. This is the same substance that killed several of my friends. But to medicate myself and to get away from the pain and not properly heal, I was willing to dance with that same thing that took their
Yeah.
life. That's
Wow.
powerful.
That
That's
is, man.
powerful.
That
I
is, man.
knew, I knew that's what caused them to pass away. But none of that thought never crossed my mind when I was using. So as I began the snowball effect, people were there and trying to help me. My wife, she was there. My mom, they could see what was beginning to happen. The use more and more. I'm disappearing for days at a time. I'm gone. When I am around, I'm not in my right mind because I can't use. They were there and trying to get me to get help. But for me, I was afraid of help because I was afraid for someone. I was afraid to hear. I knew it within me, but I knew that I wasn't going to take any steps. I was afraid to be held accountable. I'll
Right.
admit that as a man, I was
Hmm.
afraid to be held accountable. So I
Man, that's so
continued.
man,
Go
that's
ahead.
so heavy. No, that's just heavy because that is a man. Okay, we'll get to that because I think from what we talked about, of course, offline as well,
Right.
about where you want to go and how God has called you to be utilized
Mm-hmm.
to speak to the youth. I
Yes, sir.
think that what you just said, on top of everything, I think that's one of the things that's very powerful for youth to hear,
Mm-hmm.
especially the young men, to
Right.
understand that you're this big, strong, tough, and you were scared.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Yes.
I
Yes.
was. And
Yes.
and it's okay to be fearful, but don't let that fear
Mm-hmm.
stop you
Right.
or prevent you from being the
Right.
best person that you can be putting your best foot forward, stopping you from going to school, getting your
Exactly.
education, going to the military, putting God first, being a productive member of society. Don't let that fear stop you from getting the help
Right.
that you
Right.
need.
Right.
Yeah, that keep that is something that the youth, especially the young men, need to hear because men have been always taught that suppress your feelings. You don't talk about your feelings.
Exactly. Exactly.
You just
Exactly.
mission first. You drive on. You
Right.
suppress it and you keep moving forward. So I
Right.
just yeah. So
Yeah, it's
yeah.
always shown that if a man cries, a man's weak.
Yes.
Or it's always shown if a man's scared, if a man has fear, he's a coward.
Right. Yes.
But like you just said, it's all about how we're humans, we're gonna have feelings anyway. It's all
Yes.
about how you apply it.
Mm.
It's just
Hmm.
like knowledge. It's just like anything else. What good is having a head full of knowledge if you never apply it?
Correct. Absolutely.
You see what I'm
Absolutely. I
so
sure
for
do.
me, at that point, I had that stigma on me. My dad, like I said, my dad, he was in the military now. He was a career military man. I never,
Same.
I I never saw my dad show any other emotion other than courage and strength. Even though I know he's human and I know that things were, I never saw it. And, he would always, like, let's say if I fall and get hurt, get up, suck it up. Or let's say if I was sad talking to him on the phone, how I wanted him to be home and stuff. He'd always say, son, hold your head high, be strong. That's what he would say. Not to say he didn't understand my emotions, but I'm just saying that fear and the emotions that a man does feel, there's a stigma on it. And
Right.
for me, I was afraid. Seriously. I
Hmm.
didn't want people to know what I was dealing with. I didn't want people to know that I had a substance use problem. I didn't want anyone to say what's wrong with you, or
Right.
I didn't want anybody to say to me, "Oh, you have a problem," etc. So, I just isolated myself again, but this time I'm isolating myself out here in the free world.
Right.
All I cared about was the drug, and honestly, that's really it. And it's sad to say that, but I want people out there that may be going through it or have a family member that's going through it or whatever the situation is. I want them to know that speaking from someone with that lived experience, the best, what you don't give up. See, when it comes to that type of feeling or someone feeling that, it's easy to say, oh, they don't want to change, or they may be closing you out. But the one thing that that person needs is someone constant. That's what I needed. Someone constant and someone, that little crack. You can be in the darkest place, but as long as you got that little crack of light shining through,
Yeah.
just it can be minuscule. It can be a small, microscopic.
Yeah.
But just knowing that someone, just knowing that something's there, some, whether it be, it may not be a person, it could be something. It may be, God may be calling to you, or a person may be calling to you. Just knowing that everyone has not given up on you
Right.
is important. And for me, that's where my true road to getting off of the substance and my true road to recovery began. Because no matter what, no matter what I did, no matter, I was broke at this point. I had some money left from my past life, but I was blowing through that like no tomorrow. I was
Mm-hmm.
lying, I was stealing, I was broke, I was doing all kinds of things to the people closest to me.
Right.
No matter what, though, my mother and she's my wife now, they always stuck beside me through all that I drugged them through and through all that I pulled them through. And eventually, one day I was just sitting there, man. I was on a binge. Like, I had been going for like 5 days straight, man. Something had happened in life. I forgot what it was, honestly, but something had happened. And I just completely shut myself off from the world. I was on a straight up binge. When I sat there in that bathroom floor, I actually closed my eyes one time, and all I could see was my mom, my wife, and my children. A voice. I was not I was not on a spiritual path.
Right.
I was raised up in a Christian church, but I was remotely away from that.
Right.
A
Yeah.
voice spoke to me and said, this is coming from the heart. This is deep. A voice spoke to me and said, "You will lose them." When I heard that, I didn't know whether it meant death or whether they were just gonna, hang me out to dry, cut all ties with me, or what. When I heard that voice, all my friends have passed away from using the overdoses and things like that. I had some friends commit suicide, like I said earlier. None of that could stop me from what I was doing. When I heard that voice, though, it turned a light on in my head that made me think, what am I really sacrificing here?
Mm-hmm.
Because I got my own body and my own choice. I can do whatever I want with my own body. But the damage that I'm causing to the people that care about me is what I'm doing damage to myself, like I said. But the damage that I was causing the people, seeing that hurt in them, hearing my children leave me voicemails on the phone because they haven't seen me in 4 days, hearing stuff like that and experiencing stuff like that, let me know that I had to make a change. That, to me, that was the first step in my recovery that I am actively in, and my sobriety that I'm actively in now. That first step of recognizing and realizing that I truly needed to make a change.
Right.
And when I did that, I went to a group. I'll never forget this. I went to my first group. When I went to the group, I was a little shifty on it. Like I was still in, I was still in that shell. I didn't want them to
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
So, but here's another thing. Let me drop this jewel right here. This is another thing. Trying to do it by yourself. I'm not gonna. Anything's possible through God. I'll say in my what I believe. But trying to do it by yourself is a very strenuous task. Not to
Yes, it
say it
is.
can't be done, but when you get around other people that are going through or that have been through and made it through, that is what will ignite a fire for you. That's what I believe, because that's what works for me. I'm
That
not
connection piece. That connection
exactly
piece. Right. That
having that connection. Go
that
ahead.
positive connection. That positive connection of people working, not perfect. Let's throw that word perfect out of the
Right,
window. But
right,
that pursuit, that continuous, consistent
right.
pursuit of positive change moving forward in recovery, in wellness,
Oh,
that connection.
right, right, right,
Yeah.
right. And that and when you get around that, like it gives you that, just gives you energy because for me, I was in a position where I was thinking, can't nobody relate to me. Ain't nobody lost what I lost. Or, I'm down in this deep, dark place, what I considered my rock bottom. Ain't nobody made it back from this. But in that group, I didn't say anything the first group. I said nothing. I was
Right.
silent. But as I was hearing the pain around the room, pain, pain can be a double-edged sword. Pain can be detrimental to you, in my opinion, but pain can also be a catalyst. Pain can also like be fuel to a positive fire if you let it, if you interpret it correctly. I feel like for me, hearing from others, how they lost children or how someone's been sober for 10 years, that's what really pushed me to come back. So I come back to the group again the next time. And it's like you learn the tools of recovery, right?
Right.
Recovery is about more than just quitting the substance. Let's air that out because a lot of people quitting the substance is sobriety. Recovery is healing from the trauma.
Yeah.
That's how
Yes.
I interpreted it. That's how it worked for me because I was under the impression what I was thinking was, okay, I'm gonna come to this group for a little while and maybe they can help me get to quitting the substance, which ultimately ended up happening.
Right.
But my true recovery did not start until I started doing inventory mentally and really clearing myself out and recovering mentally. That's when recovery began for me.
Mm-hmm.
Because now what was leading me to the substance was my habitual thinking and my ways of thinking and my ways of coping. So now I'm getting the tools to cope effectively and positively. Now, like I told y'all at the peer support class, I never knew that I like to read books. Never knew it. It was never fathomed it. It was the furthest thing from my mind reading a
Right.
book.
Yeah.
I was never in touch with things like nature. I was never one to just call somebody on the phone and be like, look, hey, I'm going through something. I want to talk to you about it. I was closed off and never expressed any emotion. Once I started getting those tools, though, I started feeling myself because even think about this, even after you're sober, how many thoughts do you have that you revert back to, man? You revert back to that thinking that
Yes.
led you to do
Yes.
the substance. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
So for me, I really had to recover my mental. My mental was important. Learning to communicate effectively. Learning in that moment when it's now I'm fresh in sobriety. It's been a few months, and knowing instead of sitting there weighing that scale in my mind, do I keep my sobriety or am I going to let this bad situation just lead me back to use? Or
Yes, 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 yes.
yes,
That changing thinking, that changes behavior.
yes, yes,
Learning how to sit through an emotion without it turning into using or
yes,
manifesting itself in unhealthy ways.
yes.
Absolutely.
That is one of the hardest moments. And I'm sure anyone actively in recovery, which I feel like recovery is an ongoing thing. So I feel like it's a
For
forever
the rest
thing.
of your life. It's for the
Yeah,
rest of your
yeah,
life.
yeah,
I had to once I wrapped my head and my mind around, I'm not going to get a degree. I'm not going to get a diploma. I'm not going to get a certificate of completion. I'm not
Mhm.
going to get a certification.
Right.
I'm going to be in recovery for the rest of my life. Once I started thinking about that and
Right.
accepting it and then taking a deep breath, that's
Right.
okay. I'm
Right.
okay with being in recovery and wellness for the rest of my life. If I get to be in joy and have freedom,
Right. Right.
okay,
Right.
that's fine. What's the alternative? You
Right.
know? Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You're right. And see, that's for me, I can relate to that because I was the same way. I was thinking, okay, let me say I get 12 months in here. Oh, I'm recovered.
Yeah.
What do I need to go back to the group for? I've recovered from,
Right.
but the same type of situation with me, I sat down and I started feeling like recovery feels pretty good to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm fine with consistently and constantly learning new things about myself or adding
Yeah.
new things, new positive things to myself. I'm
Yes.
comfortable with that. And I
Yes.
think that that's a key thing that needs to be expressed a lot more, that you're not going to get a certificate or a degree or a plaque for this. It's ongoing, and recovery is not just recover. Let's clarify. Recovery is not just substance abuse,
Right.
trauma, anything that may have affected you that changed your mental, physical being, whatever. Recovery is a stigma put around it that when you hear recovery, oh, they were on drugs. There's a lot more to it.
Thank you for saying that, because
Yeah.
I say that is a mindset that I have. I say recovery, inspirational change moving forward. And I say recovery isn't exclusively used for mental health or
Right.
addiction or substance use. What
Right.
is recovery? Recovery for me is kissing my children, holding
Right.
my
Right.
wife's hand, going to get some sun on my face, helping my dad cut the grass. Like,
Right.
that's going to the beach and putting my toes in the sand. Whatever it is
Right.
for you, but let it be a positive change moving forward that you continue
Exactly.
to grow
Exactly.
and continue that process of restoration. So
Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly. That pushes, see, when those types of stigmas or things get placed on it, that leads to a lot more hesitance of people wanting to enter it or attempt it, because
yeah,
they
that's I
feel
like that.
right. People, it's felt like if I walk into this group, they're all going to look at me, even though some of them have been where I have, not even just a group, public period. People are going to view me as a certain, and that needs to be addressed, and we need to try to minimize that as much as possible, because recovery is beautiful. Like you
Yes, it
said,
is.
cutting your dad's grass, that's awesome. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
Yeah.
I'm just saying, kissing your children, that's great. But it's just viewed as you're recovered because you're getting off substances and trying to overcome a mental illness. No, it's more
Yeah,
than that. It's very, very beautiful.
it is.
One, go ahead.
No, no, we got about maybe about 3 minutes,
Okay, okay.
and I want a couple things that you do for your recovery and your wellness, and
Hmm.
then I want a couple things that you're grateful for.
Okay. For my recovery and my wellness, I try to spend as much time as I can evaluating myself and my surroundings. I never ever forget where I come from. I don't use those things as mistakes. I use them as lessons. I
Mm,
always go back to them, and that's how it's a chessboard. I always go back to my previous moves, and that determines how I'm going to move in the future.
that is insightful.
Yes, sir.
That
Yes,
is real
sir.
insightful. That is real
Sir.
insightful, because I like chess. I play chess too, and I'm
Yeah.
teaching my wife how to do it and my son. That's
Yeah.
real insightful.
That that's literal. That's literal.
I like that. I like that. I
That's
might have to
literal.
use. I might use that cue.
You got it. You got it. You got it. Use it away, my boy.
I
You
might
got
use
it.
that one.
You got it.
Okay. Yeah.
So what I'm grateful for the most, and this is me, my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. I'm grateful
Yeah.
because
Amen. Amen.
because he made all this possible. He gave me the tools that equip me for this trials and tribulation. It was all this was meant to be, so I
Hmm.
could be who I am now. I'm grateful for my family. I'm grateful for them being there and never giving up on me throughout this whole process. And I'm grateful for recovery and the people that I've met during my recovery. And
Yeah.
I'm just the person that recovery has allowed me to become, the new version of myself.
I am so I see the joy in your face, and that's what I hope people, when you look at how me and Q speak, especially my brother Q, how Quentin speaks, and he talks about recovery and his wellness and his journey. I just want you to just see the joy in his eyes, and the cheeks go up and the smile and the teeth are showing,
Yeah.
like, because like he said, recovery is beautiful. I'm grateful for another day. I'm grateful for my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. I'm grateful for another day of being clean. I'm grateful for my support system. I'm also grateful for the people that I meet on my recovery and wellness journey.
Yeah.
I am grateful to be, I'm grateful for that we can help and get and be beacons of hope,
Yes.
because of
Yes.
everything that we've been through. We are here by the grace of God, and we are here. It can be done.
Absolutely.
Recovery and wellness is a beautiful thing, and it can be done. We just
Absolutely.
want you to, we're just sharing this, ladies and gentlemen, so you know that it can be done, and you're not alone, never again. So listen, brother, I thank you so much for coming up here today, sharing your experience, strength, and hope, your testimony, and letting people know that there is that crack of light,
Yes,
that
sir.
seam of light, and
Yes,
just grab onto it, keep your focus on that light, and there will be recovery, and there will be wellness.
yes, sir.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
So I'm not gonna hold you up. I thank you again. I'm
Yeah.
definitely gonna have to get you back on at some point. I always tell my people that, but I be trying to get people, but I meet so many people and they have so much extraordinary stories like yourself and
Yeah.
testimonies, and I want to get everybody back on. But I love you.
Love you too,
First and
brother.
foremost,
Yes, sir.
I love you very much. I'm very grateful for meeting you. But until next time, Q,
Yes, sir.
listen, I love you. Be blessed. Peace and
Sir.
love to you and your family. And I'll talk to you soon, brother.
All right. Talk to you too. Play the tape, baby.
Yeah, I always play the tape. I
All right,
play
bro.
the tape.
All right.
Listen, ladies and gentlemen, that's what we do here at Play the Tape. Another episode is wrapped up. With hope comes love. With love comes faith. With faith comes recovery. And with recovery comes wellness. I can't, but we can. Never alone, never again. There are people like Q and myself that have jumped down in that pit with you because we know the way out. We can help. And we enjoy doing it because it brings us joy. And we want to share that joy and that hope with you. That's what Play the Tape is about. Play the Tape is about hope and joy and freedom from any mental health concern, from any addiction or substance that you may be going through. We're not perfect, and we don't claim to be, but what we are is in pursuit of recovery and wellness in God every day, just for today. Hey, until next time, peace.